Hi again. I was thinking about some different textures and some values that you can get from the glass as far as depicting a texture. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today is the different textures, how you can cut your glass to achieve certain textures, and how effective it can be depending on your piece. So I had this piece, this one's called Anchored. As you see, he's got his little tail wrapped around a piece of coral. And I have this in my home, and I did this about a year ago. And I really think that I achieved some texture by how I cut my pieces with this little guy. So I wanted to try to just go over that. And I have another piece here that also has some texture, and I'll show you that one here in a minute. So if you'll notice, some of these little pieces, I really just tried to hone in on trying to be almost as irregular as possible. I did different shapes and different sizes. In some places, I let the nip marks show through. But mainly, you know, it was the shape and the flow, trying to achieve these different sections of this little guy. And for this, I did just irregular cuts. And I know it sounds really easy and really simple, and it kind of is. So when I'm dealing with my glass, you know, I might cut out a little section like this, and I'll just start nipping. Let's see, I'll just nip away. Now there are some times when maybe I wanted this curve. See, like this curve here, that matches up pretty well. But I really wanted the inside of it to be curved as well. You can just come into the side. I don't like angling my nippers, but sometimes when I do, I get really interesting shapes. Although you don't really want it to have a bevel here on the corner either. One thing I learned in a class the other day that I thought was really interesting is when you cut on the edge of your glass, you're always going to get a curve such as this. And I tend to nip, and then work with the available pieces kind of in a random fashion. But if you cut in the middle, you'll get your straight lines. And that's pretty darn straight. So again, if you cut in the middle of your piece, you're going to get those straight lines. But if you cut off center from the middle on the edge, you're always going to get a curve. And I was really excited to learn that. So I really wanted to share with everybody. And for this piece, I nipped in tiny little curved triangles. And these pieces suited very well to some of the shapes that I had going on in this guy. Some people will nip their glass into squares, and that's fine too. You're going to find your way of cutting glass and using shapes in your projects that you find comfortable with, that you're happy with, and that it suits your eye. And to me, that's really what it's all about, is do things that make you happy and do things that suit your eye. So some of these pieces you'll see are really long, and I tried to get more of a smooth, glassy, flowing kind of shape. So I might have used my cutter on some of these, my glass cutter, because I knew I wanted that long flowing shape. And then others, I just use these little nips and pieces to create texture and color variations as well, to create texture and flow of how this little guy is put together. I really had a lot of fun with him. So here, I'll show you another one that I did. I think this one I named Buzz. And I did just about the same things, but I made irregular pieces, but I wanted large pieces, so I kept my cuts broad. Like, I brought them in and cut them broad like that. Made them nice and long. And you'll see some of these pieces and some of these shapes in this project here. So along with doing size and shape and the flow of the pieces, I think I got a really nice texture of this dandelion and had some highlights in here and some dark spots to give it a little bit of depth. My style of work is rather illustrative, so I don't really go for hyper-realism, and that's okay because this makes me happy and this has become my style and I've just really enjoyed it. Now up here in the bee, I did much smaller pieces, same shapes, but then I was able to come in and like this had this blunt edge that I didn't want. So you can just come in here and cut that edge, cut that down, and then you've got a little bit of a moon shape. And I used tweezers, obviously, and I was able to fit these pieces in rather snugly because I don't use a grout with a lot of my pieces. Now the wings here, these were fun. I used a piece of irid glass and I primarily cut the whole shape out of the wing. And then within the wing, then I used my nippers to cut in half or cut the shapes, but I kept these pieces intact and I kept track of where I was so that I could place them back down as to where I made my cuts. And I've got some illustrative lines of his wings. So, and then some of these longer pieces, I might have used my glass cutter. Again, do what makes you happy, do what makes you feel good and what pleases your eye. And 10 to 1, you're going to come up with a project that you enjoy looking at and that you accomplished and that you feel really good about. So that's what I have for this type of texture. I'll try to do some more tutorials with, you know, more smoother textures here in the future, okay? Thanks.